Okay, imagine trying to sell someone on a dish that apparently smells absolutely horrendous, but it's like a national favorite.
Or finding out that white flowers, which you might think are all about purity, are a total no-go for gifts somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Those are just a couple of the, really unexpected things tucked away in the source material we're getting into today.
We really have been given this fascinating window, haven't we? Just one person's very honest thoughts on, well, everything from friendships to food, flowers, travel, you name it.
And our mission, like always, is to really unpack this conversation bit by bit. We're going to pull out those surprising details, the cultural bits, the perspectives that feel really relatable.
Yeah.
And maybe shed some light on your own experiences too.
It's quite a journey we're embarking on. We'll touch on navigating social stuff, the sort of hidden meanings in gifts, some pretty unique foods.
Stinky tofu.
Yes. And, how travel can really hit you differently depending on the place. So let's dive in.
Okay, so first up, the source talks about friends. And what kind of jumped out at me right away is this distinction they make. They've got quite a few friends, sure, but when it comes down to the people they really care about, it's like they could definitely count them on their fingers.
That phrase, count them on my fingers, it really says something, doesn't it? I mean, especially today with all the online connections.
Right.
It's a reminder that friend can mean, well, lots of things. But that core group, the ones who really matter emotionally, that's much smaller.
Yeah.
It suggests they're going for depth, not just numbers.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole best friend idea. They say they don't really have just one.
No, it's more like, what was it? Maybe 3 or 4 very, very good friends.
Yeah, the ones they go to for help, counseling, advice, and they treasure each one for different reasons.
And that really pushes back against that typical idea of needing one single best friend, doesn't it?
It does.
It makes you wonder, is having a small circle where each person offers something a bit different, maybe more realistic, or even, healthier for friendships today? Their view seems to be, yes, value those varied, deep ties.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit.
Yeah.
How do they actually make friends? They say they're rather closed off, maybe even anxious in new situations.
Likes to suss out their environment first. Worried about saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, but then they add that people say they're very nice once they get to know me.
That's such a common thing. It's a small thing, but it's interesting. You can appreciate the act of giving or how nice flowers look without actually needing to receive them yourself.
And then the culture part comes in.
Yeah.
Big time. They mention that while giving flowers is common where they are, they have to avoid white flowers.
Yeah, because they're used at funerals.
Exactly.
And that's a really key cultural point. It shows how deep these symbols run, how they can totally change the meaning of something simple like giving flowers.
Yeah, something that means purity here is suddenly linked to mourning there. The same flower, opposite meanings.
Completely.
So, okay, avoiding white flowers, and interestingly, not big on red roses either. What do they like?
They go for sunflowers and daisies, things that are bright and happy and cheerful.
And not particularly extravagant.
Yeah, it's personal taste again, right? Choosing that sort of natural, happy vibe over the traditional romantic stuff. Even within a flower-giving culture, individual preferences really shine through.
Okay, from flowers to food, the source says, I love cooking. And they've been working on getting better, trying out things like quiches and Thai food.
Yeah, they seem really drawn to those distinct flavors, specifically mentioning the turmeric and the lemongrass in Thai cooking, finding it very distinctive. And there's that relatable bit about struggling to get whipped cream to stiffen when baking.
Oh, yeah, the eternal baking battle. Now, let's get to that really iconic food from their home, Taiwan. Stinky tofu.
Yes, they fully admit it smells absolutely horrendous.
They do. But they say people tend to like it anyway, especially the fried version.
It's such a classic example, isn't it? Where that initial sensory shock, the smell, is just totally overcome by culture and maybe learned taste.
Definitely.
The smell is part of what it is, yet it's beloved there. It makes you think, how much of taste is just biology versus what we learn culturally?
Though they personally can't get over the smell.
Right. But they also mention another huge Taiwanese export, bubble tea.
Oh, yeah. Massive global hit.
And it's such a contrast, isn't it? Bubble tea taking over the world versus the very, very local stinky tofu. Shows the range, I guess. Oh, and they also mention their own version of fried chicken, just casually saying it's very good.
Nice. Okay, moving from taste and smell to sound.
Yeah.
How do they feel about loud noises? generally.
A clear no. In general, no.
But they make a distinction.
Yeah, like noise from construction sites are understandable, right? Especially if it's necessary, like work happening next to your office. But angry shouting people, not so understandable. Their move is just to skip that if someone's being a bit extra. It's about the kind of noise, the intent behind it, not just how loud it is.
Interestingly, though, some everyday noises are actually comforting for them. They call them quite familiar and homey.
Like the toaster going off or an egg sizzling in a pan.
Yeah.
And that really gets at the psychology of sound, doesn't it? Unpredictable, maybe aggressive noise is stressful, but those gentle, predictable sounds of just home life.
Yeah, they can feel safe.
Exactly. It's all about context and meaning, not just decibels.
All right, let's shift from home sounds to travel sites. Big recommendation here. Siem Reap in Cambodia.
Yes. Describing the temples as beautifully preserved in the Cambodian jungle, a UNESCO heritage site.
And what really makes it stick, I think, is that pop culture link they mentioned.
Oh, the Tomb Raider connection.
Right.
One temple appeared in Tomb Raider, the Angelina Jolie movie.
They even remembered this scene with the Buddha head that's kind of like buried in a tree trunk, saying that's often what people recall.
That link between ancient history and modern film is pretty potent, yeah.
Beyond the movie, though, there's this really deep personal feeling. They say, I love Cambodia. And it was the first trip that I felt really connected to.
That's a really key insight. They've been to Europe, Paris, Luxembourg, Spain, and found it very beautiful visually.
Sure.
But Cambodia felt different. That special connection, they said they'd definitely go back. It wasn't just about pretty sights. It was an emotional thing, a resonance.
They talk about Siem Reap having this eerily beautiful vibe or energy, finding it very peaceful and very quiet. They mentioned Phnom Penh too, but Siem Reap seems to be the real standout for them.
And that contrast, appreciating beauty in Europe versus feeling that deeper, peaceful connection in Cambodia, it's really telling. It shows how subjective a meaningful travel experience is. It goes way beyond just ticking off landmarks.
Okay, the conversation also touched on museums and art galleries. Specifically, should they be free?
Their first reaction is yes,
Yeah.
right? Because the stuff inside belongs to the people, to humanity.
Yeah, the ideal. But then reality hits. Upkeep is expensive. Maintenance is also very costly. That tension leads them to think, okay, maybe charging a small fee is very reasonable.
It's that balance between public access and just, well, keeping the lights on and preserving things.
Exactly. They mentioned the French model, free on the first Sunday of the month, as a possible compromise.
Suggests a kind of balanced view, doesn't it? Finding ways to keep things accessible but also sustainable.
Right. And what makes a museum interesting to them? They admit it would depend, really, acknowledging different tastes.
But personally, they mentioned surrealists like Salvatore Dali and Rene McGr, Magritte, presumably.
Right. And they also like the British History Museum in London.
So their interest isn't just limited to fine art. It spans different kinds of collections. Again, it boils down to personal curiosity.
Nearly there. Let's talk about the travel business package holidays. Why do people book them?
The source suggests it's because they don't really like the planning aspect of it.
Which makes sense if you're not into that. This comes from someone who clearly really enjoys traveling independently.
Their only group trip was Egypt, and that was apparently because some places there you cannot access if you're not with a tour guide.
Practical necessity, then.
Yeah, so even someone who prefers independent travel might opt for a tour sometimes, just for access. They also guess that maybe senior citizens enjoy group travel for the company.
Makes it more interesting as well, perhaps.
So you've got convenience, access, maybe social aspects for package tours.
Contrasting with the freedom in planning you get traveling solo, like the source prefers.
Exactly.
And finally, the impact of lots of tourists. They felt this quite intensely living in Paris.
Yeah, talking about a lot more traffic, lots of crowds, the city being very chaotic, people are shouting. You can picture it.
Definitely. But despite all that,
Despite the hassle, they feel, in general, the pros outweigh the cons.
why?
Mainly economics. Countries like France depend strongly on tourism for a large part of the country's income. So ultimately, they say they like tourists for the most part.
It's that complex trade-off, isn't it? Personal inconvenience versus major economic benefit.
Precisely.
Wow. Okay, so we've really covered some ground. From defining close friendships right down to, the noise impact of tourism, all seen through this one person's experiences.
Yeah, we went from stinky tofu smells and the meaning of white flowers to feeling Cambodia versus just seeing Europe and even finding comfort in a toaster sound.
Huh? Yeah. It really shows how diving into one perspective can touch on so many universal things, but also highlight those surprising cultural differences.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, what details really stuck with you listening? Was it the count on fingers friends, the funeral flowers thing, the Tomb Raider temple?
Or maybe just that unforgettable description of stinky tofu.
Could be. What parts of this deep dive resonated with you? Did you see parallels with your own life, how you think about friends, or the sounds you find comforting, or even your travel style?
And maybe a final thought to chew on. Considering that mix, we saw those really personal tastes, like specific flowers or wanting to travel independently, alongside those strong cultural norms, like avoiding white flowers or the economic push for tourism. How much of our connection to places, to experiences, is really shaped by our own internal stuff versus those bigger external forces?
Yeah, that's a great question. How much is personal preference and how much is culture or circumstance dictating how we connect with the world? And what does that mean for how we navigate it all? Something to think about.